Iran just challenged Trump's blockade. Look at this, another tanker.
Accepted, boarded, and seized by the U.S. Navy. The Tiffany was sitting low in the water, carrying 1.9 million barrels of crude that she loaded in Kharg Island. She was moving east to China to deliver that oil when the War Department says U.S. forces conducted a right of visit, maritime interdiction, and boarding to disrupt illicit networks, providing material support to Iran.
And look at this, the vice president is not going to be attending any peace talks because Iran has now been completely taken over by its generals.
According to reports, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard is now consolidating power inside of Iran. In other words, the hardline radicals who have terrorized the world for decades are likely running the show. The guys with guns, not the guys in the suits that'll be in Pakistan. If we were going to be very blunt and very, very honest, General, the easier path for the president would be to wipe them out, obliterate them, hit all those targets. But the reality is the president really deep down does not want to do that to the Iranian people. I applaud him for that. And he's going the extra mile. However, when there's a report out tonight, the Iranian parliamentary speaker saying that they have new cards to play against the U.S.
Yeah, they're threatening.
I'm less optimistic than I was over the weekend.
Yeah, sure. Well, you have cause to be, Sean, to be frank. I think what we're witnessing right before our eyes is a power struggle inside of Iran. And yes, Ghalibaf, while he was a general in the IRGC at one point, right along with Vahidi, who is now the head, and I think they are really at odds. We have talked to Ghalibaf in the past, and so we know for a fact that he is willing to make some compromises on the deal.
But there's some people in this regime who don't want that. And what you have right now is you have a group that wants to negotiate, and then you have this other group that doesn't want to negotiate at all. They've got some weapons. Now they say they're in charge. Now they say they're going to threaten America.
It took a single post from Iran's foreign minister to expose internal divisions within the Islamic Republic.
Oh, yeah, they're collapsing.
On Friday, hours after the U.S. president announced a ceasefire deal between Israel and Lebanon, Abbas Araghchi said the Strait of Hormuz was completely open for commercial vessels.
Yeah, he said it was open.
During the course of the war, the vital waterway has been choked off by Iran to inflict pain on the global economy. Donald Trump welcomed Araghchi's announcement, but the news was short-lived. On Saturday, state television read a statement from the spokesperson of the Revolutionary Guard Corps saying the strait was back under Iranian control as a U.S. blockade of the Strait of Hormuz remained in effect.
For this reason, control of the Strait of Hormuz has returned to its previous state, and this strategic strait is under strict management and control of the armed forces.
So it's like whoever can get in front of a microphone in this country and get on TV is just saying whatever they want, hoping that that becomes the narrative for the entire country. This really goes to show you that regardless of what these people are saying, this regime is in its final moments.
Got a little cute as they have been doing for 47 years. Nobody ever took them on. We took them on. They have no Navy. They have no Air Force. They have no leaders. They have no nothing. Actually, their leaders are, it is regime change.
Yeah.
You call that enforced regime change. But we're talking to them. They wanted to close up the strait again, you know, as they've been doing for years. And they can't blackmail us.
The Iranians even tested the U.S. Navy. We confronted a blockade runner in the Arabian Sea. After a warning shot, we fired on it.
Oh, yeah, they disabled this ship.
Vacate your engine.
This is the ship that had stuff on it from China, apparently.
We're prepared to subject you to disabling fire.
Okay, we gave the flare.
They still didn't listen. So our guided missile destroyer, the USS Sprance, blew a hole in her engine room, stopped her cold. Marines choppered in, rappelled onto the deck, and took her over.
Now, look, when you're watching this stuff and you hear from people out there that say, oh, Trump has no plan, the United States has lost control, America doesn't know what it's doing, who do you really think it is that doesn't know what it's doing? These guys, these Iranians, they can't get through the blockade, they can't sail any of their ships, they can't make any money with China, and all their weapons that are coming in or going out, all that stuff's getting confiscated along with the sanctioned oil.
The president says we have full custody and are seeing what's on board. It's an Iranian cargo ship called the Tuska, almost 1,000 feet long and weighs as much as an aircraft carrier. and it's been under U.S. and European sanctions. It was up to no good. Batuska was traveling from China. The Washington Post
bringing in the weapons.
says it was loaded with dual-use chemicals used to manufacture ballistic missiles. Beijing just got caught doing us dirty, and Trump will make them pay.
Yeah.
The U.S. Navy's already turned around 27 ships. We only had to light up one runner.
Yeah, see, this blockade for Iran
military blockade
is the end.
Blockade of Iranian ports will be enforced and applies to all vessels regardless of flag.
They thought they were going to blockade this strait. And they said that they were. They said, we're going to close it down. And what their plan was they close it and then only let in traffic friendly to them. But then the U.S. came along and said, nope, we're closing it. And now you're trapped in your own blockade. That's what Trump did. And now these guys don't know what they're doing.
The president says he's maintaining the blockade until the mullahs sign the deal. Guided missile destroyers have Iran in a chokehold. Carrying a fleet of Seahawk helicopters is the USS Pinckney, named after a highly decorated black World War II naval officer. The USS Rushmore, a dock landing ship, is also on blockade duty. Sailors on board have been testing out some new toys. Our Apaches are also flying fast and low over Hormuz, on patrol and ready for action.
Yeah, these guys can't get away with anything.
The Navy deploying mine-hunting robots, basically sea drones that scan the bottom of the strait. Unmanned submarines, knife and kingfish drones conducting surveillance deep underwater. Once they locate a mine, they fall back, and a second wave of sea robots come in and blow them up. U.S. company Sail Drone is putting the finishing touches on a James Bond-style submarine hunter. Look at that.
So this whole part of the world is under U.S. control. There's nothing Iran can do. So this idea that they have new cards, that they're going to launch some new attack, it's blustering. It's just this hope on their end that they're going to get on TV and rally everyone around them. We've got several factions that could take over this country, or at least that are trying to.
The statement from Iran's Revolutionary Guards were echoed by the Speaker of Iran's parliament. Mohammad Khalibaf, who led the first round of negotiations with the U.S. in Islamabad, said the future of the Strait of Hormuz would not be determined on social media.
And here he is
posting
posting
Since the war
about
began, the U.S. and Israel have taken out much of the regime's top leadership. The former Ayatollah's son has been named his successor, but Mujtaba Khamenei has remained out of the public eye, and doubts remain on his condition. As negotiations with the U.S. continue, Iran's president has been reduced to a figurehead, and there's little doubt the IRGC is calling the shots. However, the Revolutionary Guards aren't a homogenous unit, with rival factions within it jostling for control.
So we have various strong men who are the ones trying to grab the steering wheel of this regime, so to speak. And it's going to come down to whoever's got the most guns and the most people on their side who gains control for what? Another couple of days until the bridges and power plants get hit? Hopefully it doesn't happen, but it could.
And this power struggle is going on, and what will be the resolution of it? There's a couple of paths here. One, take President Trump serious. That if you don't come to the negotiating table and the ceasefire ends, by the way, it's Wednesday, not Tuesday it ends. And if it ends on Wednesday,
so tomorrow,
and he promises to go back to full combat operations. But so our audience understands, we have twice the capability on the U.S. side in the theater now than when we had when we started the war.
Right. So we've been moving assets over here. More carriers, more troops. We are more ready now for what happens next than we were when this whole thing started, which was already way too much for Iran's military. They should make a deal, and they should take the president serious. We just had conflict. Why do we need more conflict? These people, it's like they would rather have power for a finite amount of time that has a definite end, which is apparently tomorrow, then give up.
We have never given up bringing in additional assets to assist with the execution of our wartime objectives. The Israelis, who had some ammunition shortages, have full magazine depth now. So if we go back to combat operations, they are going to be absolutely full throttle and considerably more dramatic than anything the Iranians have experienced, to include all the targets the president is talking about, and then
That's
some.
Crazy, man.
But Vahidi, listen, hardliners here. Vahidi has a couple of choices here. One, okay, work it out with Ghalibaf and let's not test the
These are
president.
the rivals.
Let's go to the negotiations, but put some strict controls on Ghalibaf in those negotiations. Or, and they're capable of this, Sean, test the president and accept going back to combat operations.
Which would be a disaster. We know what that's going to mean. It means the regime power plants, the regime architecture of this country that powers it, that they are using to wage this campaign, to fire missiles that they build themselves at countries that aren't even involved in this while persecuting their own people. It's terrible. It's a terrible situation. And some people have said since this conflict started that the only way to truly make sure that this regime was powerless was to go all the way. We're going to see if they push the president that far.
Because in the end, where they are, they believe that the president will not go completely to the end of it. The pressure on him politically and economically will force him to end it prematurely.
This is what they think.
And they'll still be standing. And they'll have leverage as a result of it. And no negotiations taking place at
They think
all
America's going to lose.
is what he is possibly thinking. And I'm trying to put my head inside a bona fide hardliner who was the guy that was in charge of the Quds Force, and guess who he gave that job over to? Qasem Soleimani.
Oh.
So this is the ilk of what we're dealing with here. I just wanted our viewers to understand some of the thought processes that may be going on here, and even the extreme that I'm mentioning, and why wouldn't they accept what's plausible and also reasonable?
So what the general is saying is that people in this regime, they are these hardliners, these people that just do not think clearly. They don't understand that President Trump's not playing games. They think to themselves that the president's under a lot of pressure economically. They think that the president is under all of this pressure from other nations that are telling him what to do, and he's going to lose support at home, and he's going to destroy the U.S. economy. If they really think that, they might think that doing everything they can to delay and to have a deal and then no deal and to play all of these games, they might actually think that's working, when the reality is they're just creating a situation, a massive trap for themselves that they cannot get out of. And they're going to wake up and find out that there's no more bridges, there's no more power plants. This is going to happen to them suddenly because they don't believe that the president is serious when he says he's serious.
And we got long time history with how unreasonable they absolutely are, and they don't care about their people. They care
47
about what?
years.
Personal survival, the regime surviving. That is it.
Yep.
And they don't care about what's best for their people. And if we're going to pound Iran, and we would, to seriously force an economic collapse. That's what would be on the horizon. It would be less about their weapons and more about their future, for sure, here in terms of their viability economically. In Vahedi's mind, if he survives that, he wins. Now, that is diabolical thinking for sure, but that is part of the rationale. We have been dealing with these people for a long time, Sean.
So they think that if they can make it through whatever onslaught happens and still be on the throne, so to speak, still be in front of the microphone, that they get to maintain their power, and that's the only thing they want. And like the general just said, this is diabolical thinking. This is not rational. This is not logical. This is not a path of peace. This is not how somebody who is defensive and want what's best for the people they represent. This is not a representative government either. Just because they have a president doesn't mean this isn't anything other than a radical dictatorship.
14 bunker buster bombs. That war ended in 12 days. That was phase one, Midnight Hammer. I'm trying to understand, after all that President Trump has done here and all the damage he has inflicted
it doesn't make
upon
sense.
them, how they could doubt in any way, shape, manner, or form his resolve to do it the hard way if he has to. And I want your reaction to that. And what about this warning about we have new cards to play? I take that as typical, quintessential propaganda and bluster.
Yeah,
Your thoughts?
That's what I think. We'll see.
Yeah, well, we know our president, and you would think the Iranians by now would know him as well. He has a tendency to follow through here. And that's the reality of it. So he's promising something that be much more significant and dramatic impact on them than what we have been doing to date. And I think he will absolutely deliver on that. He's also making a point, and certainly we understand this, that in our negotiations, while he's willing to talk, he's not going to put up with a bad deal.
Right. There's not going to be a deal at the other end of this that allows them to continue pursuing long-range missiles and nuclear weapons. That's going to be unacceptable. And there's all this talk that, oh, Trump keeps changing the terms, Trump's being inconsistent. He said from day one, no nuclear weapon. And he said a whole bunch of times that is the one thing that cannot come out of this, is them having that. And the reason the last peace talks fell apart was because that was the thing that they didn't want to agree to. They said, yeah, we'll agree to everything else, but we're going to keep working on our nukes.
That is a fact, because he understands and knows what a bad deal looked like. He walked away from one, as we all know, in 2018, 3 years into Obama's bad deal.
Yeah.
So are they making assessments of the president? Of course they are. But they also, I think, where Vahid's coming from, he believes there's significant pressure on the president. And it may be worth his while to try to accept whatever the president wants to give him. I think that is absolutely reckless thinking.
Yeah.
And he's not being rational. But I'm just trying to paint a picture here of what can be going on. Hopefully, the best answer for the Iranians would be is whatever this debate is about, resolve it and get some negotiators in to sit down at the table with our negotiators and see if something can be worked out here.
Now, let's ask ourselves for a second, what would give the Iranian leadership, these hardliners, the idea that Trump is losing? Would it be articles like this on MS Now that Trump's presidency faces mounting pressure? If you really believe Trump's an idiot and you've got Trump derangement syndrome and you'll believe whatever you hear that makes it sound like he's losing or he's about to be dethroned, could that be governing the decisions of this regime? Is this why they don't want to negotiate? Why wouldn't you try to drag this out? Why wouldn't you have peace talks that fail? Why wouldn't you keep agreeing to things and then, oh, we'll close the strait, we'll open it, playing all these stupid little games? If you think this is really happening, if you think Trump is going against the experts and everybody knows it's just a matter of time before Trump implodes, why wouldn't you just wait and try to drag this process out? I believe this is how they think. That's what the general says.
Crippled the Iranian nuclear program, and attacks have left their nuclear facilities in ruins, quote unquote. And their uranium remains buried deep under mountains of rubble. But after imploding their nuke sites, we caught the Iranians rushing to fortify Pickaxe Mountain in tunnels 2,000 feet deeper than Fordow.
Yeah, they think they can
impervious
rebuild.
to bunker busters. That piece of intelligence is what convinced President Trump that the regime wasn't abandoning their nuclear program, so he launched Operation Epic Fury. The president knows that strikes won't be enough. That means the U.S. military is going to have to either go in under enemy fire and go deep and deal with the uranium, or we do a deal and go down deep with the enemy and deal with it. This is tough stuff. The president's acknowledged the chance of casualties, but would much rather do a deal. We've done it before. In the 90s, the U.S. military conducted a secret extraction in Kazakhstan. We don't want to do this in hostile territory. But if we have to, the commander-in-chief has options. What we're not going to do is sign a weak treaty like Obama and take Iran's word for it.
But that's what Iran's hoping for. If they truly believe the headlines that say Trump is just seconds away from being removed as president and losing all of his support, if they can hold out for another couple days, that might appear to be a viable course of action, which they think is going to help them succeed. And you very well may have negotiators on their side who know that, look, we've already been through a lot during this campaign. We've lost our Air Force, we've lost our Navy, we've lost all of our missile defense. Why are we going to keep trying to put up a fight that we can't win, which is putting our entire country and our economy in jeopardy? What's the point of that? You've got people thinking that, and then you've got the other people that think, hey, wait a second. Everything I read on the internet says Trump's about to be disarmed himself. What do you think is going through the heads of these various factions that are fighting for control of this country in its final moments as a regime that does not represent its people? Let me know. I'll see you in the next video.